Coming up on Need to Know, houses that haunt. Rochester homeowners, neighborhoods, and taxpayers are facing a scary reality. But could relief be on the way? The zombie home apocalypse up next. Also on the show, a first-of-its-kind local radio station is working to bridge a gap for a growing demographic. We'll learn if the station's music and message is also bridging a cultural divide. And we'll discover how passion meets fashion. Don't miss the story behind a local designer who fought the odds and is now getting his time in the spotlight. Need to Know starts right now. With Halloween just weeks away, this is the time of year when haunted houses are all the rage. But the type of empty, run-down, dilapidated homes we're talking about today far outlasts the seasonal spooky home tours. We're talking about zombie homes. Why do you need to know about them? Well, there are hundreds of zombie properties in Monroe County haunting taxpayers in ways they may be unaware of. Sasha Ann Simons of WXXI's Innovation Trail introduces us to zombie homes. Take a look.
Zombie homes are abandoned properties stuck somewhere in the foreclosure process. You can find them in many neighborhoods across the country, but they're more than just a problem for the homeowner. We can all pay the price.
Zombie means somebody has walked away from that property, typically saying, I'm not interested, I can't afford the property. There's something that has forced them to step away.
More than 1 million homes in the United States were vacant as of May 2016, according to RealtyTrack, a company that monitors foreclosures across the country. But not all of those are at the foreclosure stage. Well, yet. With more than 4,000 vacant zombie foreclosures, New Jersey claims the most, while New York and Florida are second and third. The foreclosure process can take a few years, and the costs associated are high. Many owners find out well after the foreclosure that the home is in fact still legally theirs, along with the property taxes they've accrued and other fees. Here in Rochester, New York, about 70% of zombie homes are failed investments. Those and other vacancies throughout Monroe County have a big financial impact.
The combined impact of the vacant and abandoned properties and the foreclosed properties in the county, there's a loss of about $20 million in wealth, in assets that people have in their communities because of these homes.
So how did these homes get to this point? How are they affecting neighborhoods? And how could new legislation combined with local efforts revive these sites for sore eyes? Joining me in the studio to provide further insight on the issue is Rebecca Kaiko, Senior Staff Attorney for Empire Justice Center, and welcome to the program.
Thank you.
So the famous face that we just saw in the video, it's good to have you here. I remember I was an 80s kid and I would watch these zombie movies when I was really little, and I would think to myself when I would see these soulless creatures on the screen, how in the world did you get to this point? And I think when people drive by these empty, abandoned homes, they have to think the same thing. So I want to know, why do we have so many of them?
You know, it's really a combination of a couple of factors, right? First of all, we have a relative population decline in the region. We also have, we're trying to get out of ourselves of a foreclosure crisis. And so when you have these properties that people have been trying to really try to save as a home, and for whatever reason, lack of income, lack of employment or underemployment, people end up getting frustrated and they end up walking away. And that's some of the problem. Some of the other problems is, frankly, in the city of Rochester, there's about 70% of the vacant properties are due to investment failures.
That shocked me. So who are these people? You said investment failures, so this is from?
So these are folks that are trying to, come in and they try to essentially turn that property into they're becoming landlords.
Got it.
Right? And so that has failed for whatever reason. We have I'm a part of this task force with Adam Bello in Monroe County as well, and we're trying to get our hands around the issue. And one of the things that we've identified, frankly, is the value of these properties is too low for people to really make a true investment. And the rents, unfortunately, for some of the folks, we can't get those rents to match the value that people need to be able to reinvest into those properties. And so it's not a good investment for some folks who don't have that capital to put that back into the property. So there's a cycle, right? And a lot of these factors contribute to each other and enhance and create a bigger problem.
Well, as Sasha mentioned, this foreclosure process can take a couple years, if not more, in New York State. And in the span of that time, we see these homes just really fall apart. What's the deal with the lengthy foreclosure process? Why does it take so long?
Well, so I'm a consumer lawyer, right? So from my perspective, I find it to be a good thing, depending upon which side of the versus you're on, right?
Okay.
So as a homeowner, the reason why the process is so long is because there's really protections in place, strong protections in place to allow that homeowner to get access to their lender, who are not always the most accessible. They're not always the most reliable in terms of responding back to you. They lose paperwork. And so it's an incredibly frustrating process for a homeowner who has the means to be able to repay that mortgage, but they don't have the access to the folks at the banks who are willing to work with them and really cooperate and do a full evaluation of their assets. And so part of that is that we have created in the state of New York a process, a judicial foreclosure process, where you have a right to go before a judge and get full access to that interaction with the banks. And so that's a really important component to the foreclosure process. The problem is that when you don't have somebody who wants to remain in that home, the process is it still has some length to it, right? Some components are taken out. The settlement conference, if you are aware that that house has been vacant, then that component doesn't take place in the judicial foreclosure process, so it does shorten it. But there's still, the court is overburdened, they have a lot of other cases, and so there's still pieces of it that drag on.
So break down the implications for you, for me, for the people watching right now. We have nearly 600 abandoned properties in Monroe County. How do these homes impact taxpayers?
There's a lot more than that, first of all.
A lot more than that, okay.
Yes. So we don't have a firm number, but I can tell you what, there's over 2,400 vacant structures in the city of Rochester alone.
Wow.
And we don't know what those numbers are in the rest of the surrounding towns around Monroe County, but I assure you it's more than 600.
Okay.
So, and that's part of the issue, is we're trying to figure out what those numbers really are.
They vary. I see in one document 600, and you're telling me it's different. So there, just kind of that ability to tackle them all or track them is part of the problem too.
That's right. And so that's one of the things that we're trying to do here in Monroe County is really effectively communicate with one another, right? So we have the Monroe County clerk who has access to an enormous amount of data. The city of Rochester is far ahead of most counties, if not the furthest ahead in most areas and municipalities in the state of New York in terms of tracking this data. They have this available information online for you to take a look at. It's enormous, the data that's out there, but it's not cross-cutting the different municipalities, so we really don't have a way to identify that. But there's new legislation that we now have, we will have access to starting in January, essentially, where we have this vacant registry that the state of New York is creating, where the banks are now required, the lenders, so it's not going to be all of the properties, just the properties that have a mortgage attached to it, that they have that security attached to the house. And they are now going to be required to inform the state of New York that they have identified a property that appears to be vacant and abandoned, right? And that information then will be released to local municipalities so they can inform themselves.
Got it. Well, Rebecca, I want to go back to the implications for taxpayers. Tell me about that. Why should people watching right now care about this?
So, I mean, I think anybody who lives close to a vacant property, they know why they care about it, right? It has an impact on their neighborhood, it has an impact on their quality of life, and frankly, it has an impact on their pocketbook, right, and their assets. So I think in that video it shows there's about a $20 million loss of assets for people's neighborhoods and homes across Monroe County. It's a huge number, and people work really hard to own their home, and as soon as you have a vacant home in your neighborhood, it's approximately a $5,000 nick on that property of your own property that you have nothing to do with it, right? So it's a huge significance. What people are concerned about is, of course, once you have that property that's vacant and it's not being maintained and cared for, you've got crime rates increase, you've got vermin that come in, you have an immediate effect on the neighborhood, both public safety and just overall happiness in the neighborhood.
You mentioned the legislation that Cuomo signed this summer, so that goes into effect December 20th.
Correct.
And then we've got locally, you mentioned the task force, Monroe County Task Force on Vacant and Abandoned Properties, which you are co-chair of. So we've got these things in place. I want to know, what are the next steps locally to actively address what we already have that's fallen apart? I'm just trying to, is there a way, I know we've got sometimes silos, is there a way that we can all work together to kind of tackle some of these places here?
So we certainly hope so. That's why we created this task force, right, is we think that there's room for improvement. And so one of the things that I've already mentioned is the communication, improved communication. That's been almost an immediate improvement on the services. So right away, the county clerk's office has been sharing data with the local towns that they have in-house, easily accessible information sharing between the City of Rochester and Monroe County has also improved. The accessibility of that data has improved. But beyond that, we're also looking at, we have a report that we're releasing hopefully next week that really goes into the hurdles associated with these vacant structures and vacant properties. And then we have approximately 23, last count, 23 recommendations that we hope to implement and start the implementation process starting later in this fall.
Well, a lot to take in and a lot to look forward to. I want to thank you, Rebecca Kaiko, for joining me, Senior Staff Attorney for Empire Justice Center. I appreciate your insight into this issue. You can check out the full report by Sasha Ann Simons. It's online. Her whole zombie story, home story, is at WXXInews.org. Just be sure to click on the Innovation Trail link. Rochester's first 24-hour Spanish radio station will be celebrating its first birthday in a few weeks. Poder 97.1 FM hit the airwaves last November with the goal of reaching dual-language audiences through music, educational programming, and everyday life tips. So how is this station, owned and operated by Rochester's Ibero-American Action League, reaching a growing demographic and using culture to bring diverse audiences together? Joining me in the studio is Gladys Pedraza Burgos, co-founder of 97.1 FM and Chief Operations Officer at Ibero-American Action League, and Hector Arganzoni, afternoon DJ at 97.1 FM. So welcome to both of you. It's great to have you here.
Thank you.
And congratulations on the upcoming anniversary. So what I'm excited to learn, what did you learn in year one? And I'll give that to you first, Gladys.
Well, to have go through the process of securing an FCC license was a learning experience in and of itself. They don't usually open up the window of opportunity for somebody to apply. And in this case, it was very specific to trying to get smaller and voices that don't get enough airtime with all the commercial radio stations there are. So a lot of it was geared towards not-for-profits. And there was about 6 applications coming from Rochester, quite a few, and all of us very diverse, all of us with a very specific market that we were trying to reach, and we were successful enough to be granted our FCC license. We applied in June of 2013. It was my 3rd day at work when we started the process, so that was my first big project to follow and to make happen. And so it was very exciting. I've done a little radio here and there when I used to work at the University of Rochester, but never trying to get a station up and running. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about all of what it takes to run a station. We worked very closely with an engineer by the name of Al Davis, and we also tapped into you all here at XXI as well with Michael Black, to just everybody that would help us give us some information on what do we need to do. And so it was very, very exciting, trying to narrow down what are the call letters. I mean, there's all these logistics.
I believe it.
There was like 11 pages of different call letters. And so we went through and we said, okay, well, maybe we would find something that said a name or something that would represent something. Our first thought was
what does Poder represent?
That's exactly. So we ended up with WEPL, which stands for El Poder Latino. And we just kind of shortened it by calling Poder.
And that means?
And that means power, or Latin power, or to empower.
Very good. Well, I want to get to you. So, Hector, I understand you're on the air Monday through Friday from 3 to 7. Yeah. And I want to know, is there a recipe that you use when you hit the airwaves to really engage, entertain, and inform your audiences and to keep their attention. We live in this era now and it's so easy to just click the dial. So what do you do to make sure you're connected with them?
I think through music. The music is definitely the key here, and we've seen that with the response of the people. I think we got a really nice group of DJs that bring all kinds of different elements to the table and that appeal to a broad section of the Latino community and non-Latinos as well. It's music, and it's information. It's what interesting topics we may bring. You know, in my case, I'm a salsero. I like salsa. So my program tends to be heavier on salsa, but I do a little bit of everything, a little bit of the reggaeton, which is, you know, our younger folks, and bachata, and just a variety of different, but heavy on the salsa. That's my thing.
And you mentioned you wanted to reach the Latino community, but you wanted to expand beyond that. And I know that was something when I first learned about you, I read that early on, and I want to know, how are you doing that? Because that's a big thing. When this FCC change came, when they opened it up the airways back in 2013, I read about, you know, different nonprofits saying, hey, this is an opportunity to bring together demographics in a way that we haven't seen before. So have you been able to do that?
Well, that was our biggest challenge, was because we wanted to be all-inclusive. So in Rochester, we have people who came here in the early 50s. And then we have the children of those people who came in the early 50s. And then we have the children of the children who were born here. So we have multiple generations depending on where people fall on the acculturation scale. And then we also have people who've mixed, who've married other people outside of the Latino culture. And we have people who just love salsa, merengue, they love, or they're trying to learn Spanish. And so how do we appeal to this really wide, broad audience? And we didn't look at it as a challenge. We looked at it as something to embrace and say, hey, why not? Why can't we play all of these? So you'll hear Latino artists singing salsa, merengue, bachata, but you also hear, you know, Jennifer Lopez, you'll hear Mark Anthony, you'll hear Shakira, you'll hear others who are singing in English, but they're Latino artists. So we try to all of them, everybody that's there.
So what type of educational components are you doing to this? Because I know that was a big deal. I don't know if that's something that you bring into the work that you do, but what are you doing to get to that to educate, to inform, and to kind of really bridge the community?
So part of the education is Ibero focuses on education in and of itself. We focus on health, we focus on civil engagement. So right now we're running a really big register to vote campaign to make sure that people are registered and making sure that they vote, make sure they're engaged in the civic process. The other is we have a grant through a federal grant called the Health Professional Opportunities Grant. So we want to advertise that. We want to advertise our youth programs that we have, as well as our health programs. What we've infused on the radio are what we call these health bites. So for example, people are really drawn into the music, they're listening, yay, and then all of a sudden they'll start to hear very suggestions and strategies on how to cook in a healthier way so that you can be healthier.
There's this quote, from a small seed, a mighty trunk may grow. And I want to know, Hector, what are your hopes for this station? How much do you hope that it will grow? And are there things, as we wrap this, sorry I have to cut it short, but is there one thing that you would really like to see happen that you have yet to see take place?
Well, as a community, we've been waiting for this a long time, you know, and we've had different various shows during the course of my life here in Rochester, where we've done like our show here and there. So my hope is that it grows in its capacity. Right now, it's a low power. And maybe someday we'll enhance that and make it better. But that would be my hopes, and I know a lot of the community would like to see that.
We wish you much success in the coming year. So thank you to both of you for joining me. And you can check out Poder 97.1 FM on your radio and online. Just go to poder971.com. Some call it one of Rochester's most anticipated events of the year. That's Fashion Week. In a matter of days, Rochester's Inner Loop will be transformed into bustling catwalks that rival some Fashion Week shows around the country. Take a look.
Girls, we run this mother. Yeah. Girls, we
you may not realize is this annual event, now in year 6 in Rochester, isn't all about glitz and glamour. It's about raising funds to support some of the most vulnerable people in our community, homeless youth. And it's also about highlighting area designers who inspire both on and off the runway. Joining me in the studio is Elaine Spall, Executive Director of the Center for Youth and co-producer of Fashion Week of Rochester, and Dimitri Saniazel, a Rochester designer and owner of Cool Mo Company. Welcome to both of you.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. I think generally speaking, when people think about fashion and fashion shows, they think there's a layer of superficiality to it. And this is the type of thinking, Elaine, that you've been really working to change, along with your partner in this, Megan Mundy, for quite some time. How difficult has it been to really kind of switch those mindsets and sometimes negative perceptions that come to fashion and Fashion Week?
Well, you know, you don't want to seem frivolous, and you don't want to seem superficial, as you say. And when people realize that every time they buy a ticket, every time they visit a boutique during the boutique crawl, they're helping our homeless kids. It changes things. And I always say we're never embarrassed to look good and to feel good and to be talented and creative and to help our community. And this year, Partners in Napier has helped us brand Walk the Walk. And in some ways, they brought us to that message that makes that difference. So we're walking the walk on the runways, as you say, the catwalks, and they're being established right now in the inner loop. Oh my goodness, you should see what's going up in a pile of dirt. And we're walking the walk for our kids. And so many people are walking with us, and that's what we're seeing.
And there's really this three-part mission to Fashion Week in Rochester: engage the community, highlight local designers, boutiques, and businesses, and the most important goal, to raise funds for homeless programs at the Center for Youth.
Nice.
One key part of your mission is sitting with us today, and that's the designers, the local designer. So Dimitri, I want to know, what was it about fashion and design that pulled you in? Why is it something that you like to do?
I always had a thing for fashion since I was young, like real young. And then because we didn't have much growing up, we had to make a way, we had to figure it out. So we had to put things together to make it look fashionable so we don't get what they call drilled in school and things of that matter. So we just had to be fashionable.
So that creative process, just from working with little to make something big for yourself.
Exactly.
What, like, talk to me about your zone. Do you get in the zone when you design? Is there a certain style that you have that you like to emulate with your works?
my style is, my whole goal with fashion is bridging the urban with the designer. That's my whole goal, is to bridge the gap, because it's a whole gap between urban and designer wear. And I just want to look cool. Like, that's the whole thing of my clothes, just to look cool.
Well, you do. You succeed.
Thank you.
You're successful.
He's wearing his beautiful fashion vest.
Elaine, talk to me. What goes into the process of selecting, Rochester designers and boutiques to showcase? There are so many.
There's so many.
I know that you tried before. This is something that was important for you to be a part of.
Yeah.
How do you decide who gets to show their work?
Well, let me give credit to Meg Mundy, who is off doing fittings and other things right now, making sure people are ready for the shows. She has an eye. She has an eye for talent. She met Dimitri and Ajani, some of our designers, when we were looking for skateboard artists to be in the Thursday night show. And then she saw his design. She has an eye for it, and she's also deeply integrated her work with the Center for Youth. It's amazing to me, as you and others have, really understand what we're trying to achieve. And, it's inclusive. Remember that. We're not the fancy pants runway shows where every ticket is $600 or $1,000. We have standing room for $25. So we want to see Rochester. And Dimitri is Rochester. The Center for Youth is Rochester. Glorious Runway is Rochester. And so we are always inclusive. We're bringing in people. People say to me, oh my goodness, did you fly all those models in? I'm like, no, we have the most beautiful people right here and the most talented. So we give Meg the credit for that. The logistics and everything else that goes into it, it sort of falls on us at the center, although Meg is involved with every single step of the way. And we are always going to the new frontier. And the new frontier is the inner loop. We did Parcel 5. That's old news. Now we're in the inner loop.
And speaking of the inner loop, you're going to be there. Your designs will be featured next Thursday,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And I've seen your fancy sweatshirts in the box, and I hope that you make them for women, because if you do, you can sign me up. Okay. But, I want to know, you've worked hard to get to this point. What challenges have you really had to overcome to get to the point where you are now, and to be able to see your product on a runway next week?
Just believing in myself. I just had to believe in myself, because it's a lot of doubt because of my environment. But because of what I'm doing, a lot of people around me, I can't believe I say it. A lot of people around me, how can I say it?
But
Do you feel like you get that support, or is it a lack of support around you?
No, it's a lot of support. It's just the environment that I'm around.
It can sometimes be distracting.
Yeah, it could be distracting at times. So it's times I just have to zone in, just stay to myself, go in my room and just do my clothes. So I'm just focused. Everything else is just gone. It's just me, the clothes, and Kumo.
Yeah.
That's about
And you
it.
know, our kids, like Dimitri, make choices. And they have lots of choices. And some of the choices, as we've talked, as I get to know him, some of those choices are not always positive. There's a draw to some things that are not always positive. So here you have a young man who's drawn to something tremendously positive, and we can showcase him as you are right now. So thank you for that as well. We asked Dimitri whether or not people were thought it was soft, or thought it was like, what are you doing?
What did they say?
Yeah.
No, they love it though. Because,
Yeah, see?
because it's another outlet. Because it's something else they can do. It's besides drugs, music, and things of that matter. You have a designer in the neighborhood, someone who makes clothes. Like, you don't get that too often.
And I bet it's a conversation piece too. I mean, not only that, and you're someone that people in your neighborhood are looking up to.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that you've got people.
And now I see people creating their own lines and wanting to do art and stuff. So it's a beautiful thing. So as long as I'm a part of that, and I'm inspiring people.
What do you want people to learn from your story?
Don't give up. That's about it. Just don't give up. Just continue inspiring while you inspire yourself. You have to inspire yourself first, too.
And what are we going to see next Thursday? What will we get to see on the runway?
A lot of this. A lot of Kumo, a lot of jackets, a lot of outerwear, and the cool boxes that you saw.
Good.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I look forward to seeing
Do we
this.
know your size? Small.
Small?
Put a small aside.
Okay.
I'll find you.
Yeah,
I will
we'll find
find
you.
you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you being here. A special thank you to my guests, Dimitri, Sonny Ezell, and Elaine Spall. You can see Dimitri's designs on Thursday, October 13th during Fashion Week of Rochester. The 5-day event kicks off on October 10th and runs through October 15th. To learn more and to get your tickets, be sure to go to fashionweekofrochester.org, and there's a link where you can get those tickets. And that is it for this edition of Need to Know, Rochester's news magazine. I'm your host, Helen B. and Duty Hofer. Thank you for joining me tonight and throughout the weekend. And thank you for your support of public broadcasting. I will see you next week.